Metaphor ReFantazio is my game of the year. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's Amiibo here. Today, I wanted to give you my thoughts on Metaphor ReFantazio as I just rolled credits late last night, and this game has been an absolute journey for me, man. So, of course, I picked it up when it came out, and I was playing it. I had to put it on hold for some other things like Mario and Luigi, as well as Dragon Quest III HD2D, and a couple other things I was playing in between. But I finally got time to go back to it after finishing up Dragon Quest. And man, oh man, I'm glad I stopped where I did. I stopped at like right around the halfway point. And for those who have played the game, the second half of the game, like I stopped on Virga Island, which is like the perfect stopping point to take a little break and then come back to this game. And man, oh man, this game is incredible. This is absolutely my game of the year. Now, asterisk, I have not played Rebirth or Infinite Wealth. I think it's very possible those two games might give it a run for its money, but playing through Metaphor ReFantazio was an absolute treat, and it's actually the first time in a long time I've actually like finished an Atlas JRPG. I loved SMT4 on 3DS. That was the first Atlas game I ever played before any Persona stuff. In fact, I've never even beaten Persona 5, so I guess overall I'm a pretty new Atlas fan, although I love SMT5. So, going into Metaphor, when this game was announced back in 2023, I was very excited for it. I was excited to see, a new IP from Atlas, this new fantasy medieval thing, and we'd heard it was announced like a long time ago as Project ReFantasy. I was always excited for it, but it was something I wasn't sure if I would even play on day one just because I'm so far behind on Persona and stuff. It's like, well, am I even going to give myself a shot at playing through Metaphor? But I'm really glad I did because I, was playing this game for nonstop for like half of October. Then I had to put it on hold for some other things. And then getting back to it at the towards the end of November, playing through the rest of this game, just an absolute treat. And I think for me, the absolute best part of this game is the narrative and the characters, the world, the story. This world is so alive. The world of Metaphor is so alive, and the characters are so great. I was talking to some friends. I think Metaphor might have my favorite cast of any JRPG. At the very least, it's right up there with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 being my favorite Nintendo Switch game. I think it is on that level. That is how good the characters are, your party members are in this game. But not even just the party members, even like the supporting cast like Botlin and, of course, the villain Luis. The characters are so good and so well written, every single one of them. There's a few I'm a little bit more indifferent towards, I guess. But overall, at least for the core, main party members and a lot of the major supporting cast, the characters in this game are fantastic, and their stories are so rich, and, the social links, which are a huge thing in Persona, seeing those here and just how far they go to really show you these characters' backgrounds. Like, I won't spoil anything, but my boy Heisme, oh my god. Some of the best stories in this game are told through these social links. It's such a special world. The writing is so special. The narrative is so good. There are some twists and turns towards the end that, like, I kind of saw coming, but also kind of didn't see coming. And, I know there's some debates online about the plot in this game. But overall, I think the narrative and the characters are just so special and so great, and that world especially, I think that's what really kind of ties it all together. The world in this game is so great. The monster designs in this game are so great. The music in this game is fantastic. I'm recording this before the Game Awards. I'm not sure when I'm posting it, but I cannot wait to hear the Metaphor main battle theme in the Game Awards orchestra, because it has like all this like vocal like chanting and stuff. It's such a good soundtrack in this game. I will say I kind of wish there was maybe some more songs. Like, there was points towards the end of the game where like there's these epic final cutscenes happening, and like the regular music you've been hearing throughout the entire game is playing. It's like, okay, that's a little weird, but not to say that music's bad. It's just like, I kind of wish there was maybe a little bit more music, but the music that is there is just absolutely incredible, and one of my favorite OSTs I've heard in a game in a very long time. The art direction in this game and, the graphics, also something I think a little bit more contentious for a lot of people. I think the direction this game is taking with its art style is fantastic. I love the way it looks. When you're in these cutscenes, there's like this weird like shimmer effect going on like the models and stuff. That looks really good. I love the way it looks. But graphically, it is, I would say, overall kind of underwhelming, but that's not what I'm here for. I like Xenoblade. I play games on Switch all the time. So yeah, there are definitely times where Metaphor looks a little crustier than I guess you would expect from a PS5 game, but ultimately that's not something that's going to like really hurt my experience with the game. When I bought the game, I was playing on PS5, and there were definitely some frame drops, I will say that, but playing on PS5 Pro, finishing it up there, no frame drops at all. I didn't notice any frame rate issues playing on the PS5 Pro, but I did notice some on the base PS5. So by the time I got there, frame rate not an issue. I do understand the criticisms of the graphics though, but it's just not something that really affects my experience with the game. But I do love the art direction. And of course, talking about an Atlas game, you can't not talk about their incredible UI, their amazing UI. At first, I was a little overwhelmed because when you look at the UI in this game, it's like so like in your face. Everything's moving. There's all these different moving parts. Even like the text boxes have like a moving animation to them. That it's kind of like a visual overload. But once you kind of get used to it and everything, and you're just like kind of taking it all in, the UI in this game is so stylized. It's so snappy. Everything just kind of works when you open up the pause menu and you have all of your party members' faces all lined up with this beautiful, 2D art. It just looks absolutely incredible. And that applies to the battles as well. The UI in the battles is amazing. And let's talk about the battles now. I think the combat system in this game is nothing short of masterclass for a JRPG, for a turn-based RPG. This is what I want to see from more games like Final Fantasy. I would love to see Final Fantasy go back to a more turn-based approach, but it also does have those real-time combat elements where when you're in a dungeon and you're exploring, if an enemy is low enough level, you can just swing your sword or whatever, your class currently is. You can just attack them in the field and kill them that way. But if they are higher level, you have to kind of do a squad strike and enter a turn-based setting, which I think works really well. It helps the pace of the dungeons a lot, I think, being able to just kill some of the lower level mobs. But if you've played a Persona game or a Shin Megami Tensei game, the combat's going to feel pretty familiar off rip, right? Like you have your 4 party members, you can do your magic attacks. In this game, there's the job class system is called archetypes, which is a great system where basically the characters, it's basically personas, right? But in this game, it's archetypes, and you can kind of shift them around and change them all around, and every character can have any archetype, so you're just constantly changing your archetypes and leveling them up and, getting different moves through inheritance and stuff. You have the synthesis attacks that are based on which archetypes are in your party, and overall, the combat in this game is just a ton of fun. Usually, when I'm playing a 70-80 hour JRPG, I get sick of the combat. That did not happen in Metaphor ReFantazio. Even games I love, even a game like Xenoblade Chronicles, by the end of the game, I'm only like, okay, I'm kind of just, I want to get through the end. I just want to see, the rest of the story. I don't want to mess with the combat. Or, it's not that the combat isn't fun in those games. It's just like, eventually I get a little bit tired of it, when you're playing it for that long. But with Metaphor ReFantazio, it never got old. I never got tired of experimenting with the combat. Maybe that's because you get some party members pretty late in the game. You unlock more archetypes right towards the end of the game. Maybe that's why. But the combat in this and Metaphor was just fantastic. And overall, I don't want to get too into spoilers here, but the story in Metaphor is so good. I think I saw some people trying to say it's not a political game. That's definitely not true. This is a very political game. And it's great because of that. It is a great game because it is political. And, you can take your own different meanings from it based on what it is. But there's so many different themes of class and religion, dealing with things like anxiety in this game. Like, the way it is told is so well done. Like, I don't really know how to describe it, but if you've played the game, you understand what I'm talking about. The story in this game is just, it's so masterfully done. There are some twists and turns that I think would cause some, controversy, but overall, the overall themes of the game are just fantastic and really have a deep meaning that I really appreciate it. Something that I was definitely a little bit worried about going in is the pacing, and I'm happy to say that against all odds, the pacing in this game is consistently really good. I would say the beginning is the slowest part, but even then, I was hooked pretty early on. I was hooked within the demo when that released, and it kind of just keeps going. Every different dungeon or every different like arc you have in this game, it just keeps ramping up. It keeps getting more and more interesting as you get more party members, as you meet new people, and as the story keeps unraveling itself. I would say the second half is definitely better than the first half, right? Like, there are like slower moments in the beginning half of the game, but that's not to say they're boring or slow or anything. It's just a little bit slower than, the second half when they start doing all the plot twists and stuff. So the pacing in this game, for a 70-80 hour game, for it to pretty consistently keep me engaged is really impressive, and something that I can't even say for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Once again, just comparing it to my favorite RPG, just to illustrate how good Metaphor is, comparing it to my favorite game of all time, Xenoblade 2 has a lot of issues, There are especially a lot of pacing issues in that game in the earlier parts of it. Metaphor doesn't have any issues like that. It really doesn't. In fact, I cannot believe I'm saying this, as someone who loves me a good, shorter game, there's actually, and this is maybe a downside, there is one part of this game that I feel like has a cut dungeon. I won't say where it is, but if you play the game, you've played through it, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. But there's a point in the latter half of the game when you're in September because of the game's calendar system. There's a point when you're in September where I just feel like Like, you go to this area and you just fight a boss, and then that's it, and then it's just, that's it. Like, that's all there is. I feel like there was definitely supposed to be a dungeon there. I wonder if maybe we get a Metaphor ReFantazio Royal. Maybe we get that added back or something. So, you know, this 100-hour game with basically perfect pacing, in my opinion, I still actually think it could have had more content, and I would not have minded that at all. So, that's crazy to say. Speaking of the calendar system, I just mentioned that briefly. You know, that's something that always stresses me out in games, is like having to manage my time. I don't like it. I really, genuinely, almost never like that. And that was a major barrier of entry for me when it came to Metaphor, where, you know, I was looking at all the trailers for this game. I was like, wow, this looks incredible. I just wish it didn't have the time stuff from Persona. That's actually why I stopped playing Persona 5, believe it or not. When I was playing that game, I was like, I don't like how the time works. I don't like how you do a task and then half the day passes. I think I get it now. I think I finally understand, right? That's why I like SMT more. I've always enjoyed SMT more because it doesn't have that stuff. But now that I played Metaphor, I did go back and play some of the older Persona games, including 5, and finish that up. But, you know, using the calendar system in this game and the way you have all your kingly virtues that you rank up. So you have, like, your wisdom and your imagination and your eloquence and your courage, and you're constantly ranking those up. Basically, like in Persona when you would go to, like, study or something. It's just basically just that. But I don't know if it's that different from Persona. Maybe it's just I was playing at a different time, so I had a different experience with it. But it felt... the calendar system in this game felt a lot less stressful, right? So, like, if you go to a dungeon, that takes one of your time clocks. You have 2 time clocks a day, basically. You have to go to a dungeon during the day, though, so when you go to a dungeon, you do the dungeon, you come back to your town or whatever, and then you have another activity that you can use, and usually that's when you'll, like, you know, do a social link and talk to one of your party members, or maybe you'll, you know, talk to a random stranger in the town, and that'll increase your eloquence, or maybe you'll do a side quest or something, and that'll also take up time. Usually, those mechanics in games just stress me out, because I feel like I'm gonna miss something, and I did miss stuff in this game. I did most of the side quests. I would say probably 90% of them. Towards the end, I started skipping a little bit more, but because I wanted to see, you know, the end of the game. But throughout, up until I was like level 70, I was doing every single thing that popped up on the screen, 100% in it as I went. So even though you technically are on a timer, you kind of have to, like, almost intentionally mess up to miss something. Aside from, there are, like, these little debates you can do. I completely missed these somehow. I don't know if a character said something to me about it and I missed it, but I saw there's a trophy where you debate the other contestants in the game. I won't say what that is about, but you debate the other contestants. I missed that. Just I completely missed that entire mechanic. I don't know where I was supposed to go, where I was supposed to enter that. So I didn't do much of that, and that is something I missed. So whenever I inevitably replay Metaphor in like 10 years, I'll make sure to hit those on the calendar, because I think why I missed it was because they were on specific days, and maybe I was doing a dungeon or something. I'm not too sure, but overall, the calendar system is something that usually stresses me out in games. It did not stress me out in this game, and maybe that's not necessarily because it's a better system in this game. Maybe it's just because of my perspective when I went into the game, and now when I go back to Persona 5, I won't have that stress going into it. Another game that doesn't use a calendar system but does use time that always stressed me out, and I was like always like had like a thing of like, I don't want to play this game because of this, is Majora's Mask. I never wanted to play Majora's Mask because of the 3-day cycle you have to keep resetting. It always stressed me out, and then I realized that's stupid. So, you know, I played the game, I was like, oh, this is my favorite Zelda game. So, I don't like time mechanics. You know, Lightning Returns has time mechanics, not a fan of that either. But when I actually get myself into the game, get my foot through the door, it doesn't really continue being an issue for me, I guess. So basically all that is to say, Metaphor calendar system, pretty good. Talking about the pacing here a little bit more, I have seen some people joking about this, and I think this is valid, but without this, I feel like the game would be a lot lesser, and that is the amount of just watching you do. I have specifically, like, when you go to a dungeon, you do like a big story thing, you know, you're playing in the game a lot then, but then you get back to the town or whatever, and you have like 20 days or something until the next main story objective happens, and you have so much time to kill, and I mean, you will literally go 3-4 hours just listening to social links, doing basic activities, and just kind of seeing more story unfold. I mean, there will be hours at a time where you go without going into combats, and I think for some people that might be frustrating. For me, there was one moment where I was like, I kind of want to just play the game. Like, I kind of want to grind up a little bit here. And it was mostly story stuff happening. And I was like, you know, I'll just come back to it. I'll come back to it another day. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to have to sit there with 100% focus on what is happening on the story, right? If that makes sense. Sometimes you just want to kind of mindlessly run around in a dungeon and kill enemies. There are times where it's just story and it's just dialogue. And I think for some people that might be an issue. But for me, without that aspect of the game, your connection to the characters would be a lot lesser, and the importance of a lot of the characters would be lesser. So I understand it, but for me, it's not an issue. You know, like I said, there was one moment I was like, okay, I don't really want to like listen to story right now. I think I was like tired after work or something, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to listen to the story right now. So I just put the game down, and I think I played Call of Duty, which is also mindless. But yeah, there is a lot of dialogue, a lot of optional kind of content with the characters. Also, huge shout out to the voice acting. I think that also helps bring the characters to life even more. Heismay's voice actor, Hulkenberg's voice actress. Just some fantastic voice acting in this game. So yeah, I know I didn't go the most in-depth in this video, but I wanted to get my thoughts after having just finished the story and beating it for the first time. Metaphor ReFantazio is a masterpiece. If you like turn-based RPGs, you owe it to yourself to play the game. At least play the demo that is available on PSN and Steam, and I think Xbox as well. It's also I think it's on Game Pass. It might be, maybe it's not on Game Pass, but either way, I highly recommend you play Metaphor. If you are one of my Nintendo followers, I'm hoping I will also buy it, but I'm really hoping for a Switch 2 port of this game so that more people can play it, Nintendo fans can play it, because it is one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. For me, the most important thing almost always comes down to, is the cast good, and is the story interesting, and is it exciting, and is it, you know, giving you unexpected events? And Metaphor delivers in every category. Is the combat interesting? Yes, it does. Is the music incredible? Yes, it is. So, like, basically every checkbox of what I look for from a game, Metaphor delivers and then some. So for me, it is a clear Game of the Year contender for me, or Game of the Year winner for me, beyond Astrobot. I have not played Rebirth, like I said at the top. I have not played Infinite Wealth. So maybe I think Rebirth would have the likeliest chance of out-crowning it, but I really don't think so. I mean, I like 7 Remake quite a bit, but there's something about Metaphor and its world and its unique world that really makes it stand out to me. So Metaphor ReFantazio is my Game of the Year. Maybe I'll do some sort of like spoiler video or something where I go really in depth on the plot. Maybe I'll get a friend on to talk about that. That may be kind of fun in the future. But Metaphor ReFantazio, if you have not played it, if you have not picked it up, I think it's been on sale for like $50 the past couple weeks. Cannot recommend it enough. So that is going to do it for today's review. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Have you been playing Metaphor ReFantazio, and do you agree or disagree with any of the points I made? I would like to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. I know I have a couple people on my Discord server who are also saying it's their Game of the Year. So I don't think it'll win Game of the Year at the Game Awards, right? I don't think it will. I think Astrobot probably will, or Rebirth. But Metaphor, if Metaphor wins, man, that'd be freaking awesome, because it totally deserves it. It better win Best Music. I will say that. The soundtrack in this game, not to like repeat myself, but oh my god. That's all I can really say. Oh my god. The soundtrack is just that good. So that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more reviews, as well as collecting content, you know, what we do here, that kind of stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my other YouTube channel at BoTalksGames as well. I will have a review for Fantasian coming up in a week or two. That's my next game. Just in a constant barrage of JRPGs, so however long it takes me to get through Fantasian, that's when you'll see the review for that game on Switch and PS5, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, folks, peace!